Hello and welcome back to yet another exciting week of Creative Clash. My name is Joshua Short and I will be your host this beautiful Thursday morning. On the show with us so far, we've had a variety of singers, actors, and comedians graciously share their talent with us. However, in the studio with us today, we have a unique talent that strays from the pack. Comedy writing and performing major Rachel Schrock is here to share some of her short stories with us. So, without further ado, here's Rachel Schrock.
I've never really been known for my sense of direction. Once I literally got lost on my way to school, just outside the school. I was right in front of the door, but somehow I couldn't find my way inside. I've gotten better since then, but not by much. I'd just gotten off a long shift after a full morning spent with my best friend. It was the last time I'd see her before I left for college, so I marked the occasion by impulse buying a dark teal 3/4 size guitar, which I then had to leave in my car while I worked. I was a sales associate at a local shoe store. This happened to be the first time I'd been in the mall after it had closed. I assumed they made sure everyone had left before locking all the doors, so I figured I could just walk out of any exit like normal. I could not. I wandered helplessly through the mall, trying several doors. None of them would open. I was just about to give up. I had a morning shift the next day, and there were some comfy couches just outside the shop when a janitor appeared. "Do you know how to open the doors?" I asked frantically. "What?" she asked through a thick accent. "I need to leave. Can you open the door?" "I don't understand." Finally, my tired, terrified brain realized that English would get me nowhere. "Necesito salir, pero no puedo abrir la puerta." "Oh, aquí es fácil," she said, showing me the device on the door that let you open it when it was locked. I raced to freedom, thanking the janitor profusely as I left and sending a mental shout-out to my Spanish teacher. My next task was to find my car, which I knew was parked somewhere near the JCPenney. This wasn't really all that hard in a mostly empty parking lot, but one mistake would make it much more difficult. Instead of walking towards the Hobby Lobby, which I feared would take me in an entirely different parking lot, it would not. I headed the other way. What I didn't realize was that this route would take me nearly all the way around the mall before I'd get to where I'd parked. With each turn around the building, I got more and more discouraged. JCPenney was nowhere to be found. I feared that this was no ordinary mall, that perhaps it had been designed by M.C. Escher, and that I would be doomed to walk around the outskirts of this paradoxical shopping center for all eternity. But no, the JCPenney was right around the next corner, and my car was nowhere in sight. I was getting worried now. What if my car had been stolen? My brand new guitar was in there. And if my car was gone, I had no way home. Never mind that if my car had been stolen, my parents would have never let their firstborn sit outside a locked mall all night. I obviously wasn't thinking clearly. After rounding a few more corners, I finally saw my car, intact and with all its contents. I would have run toward it, but running was the exact opposite of how I wanted to celebrate my victory over M.C. Escher and his death mall. For the month or so I worked at that mall, I went to the adjacent Taco Bell only 2 or 3 times. This was my first night experiencing it. It's not like it was a bad Taco Bell. It was just as good, or not good, as your average Taco Bell, really. It's just that it was very, very creepy. That night, as well as on my other visits, my drive-thru experience went something like this. "Hello! Welcome to Taco Bell! How are you?" I'm okay." "Good! That's great! I'm so glad to hear that! Can I take your order?" Then I would order, pull up, and wait until a smiling employee handed me my food and wished me a good night. Due to my exhausted state, I couldn't muster up the energy to be alarmed by the Stepford Taco Bell until after a long night's rest and a good helping of coffee. I'd like to say that the creepiness of this encounter was enough to put me off Taco Bell, but in all honesty, there is very little that could keep me from eating that stuff. If anything, the whole ordeal just really made me hate closing shifts.
Rachel, great job, fantastic. Gracias, is that how you say it?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, perfect.
De nada.
Viewers, exactly. Viewers, send in your responses and questions for Rachel to @CreativeClash on Twitter. And don't go anywhere. After the break, we'll sit down with Rachel and ask her a few questions about her writing talent and Spanish. So do not move that mouse. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Creative Clash. I just want to remind you that you can send in your responses and questions for Rachel using the handle at Creative Clash on Twitter. Do it right now. We might feature your tweet later on in the show. Now that we've heard some of Rachel's short stories, let's find out more about her. Rachel, how are you?
I'm great.
Explain to the viewers about yourself.
Well, I'm a comedy writing performance major, like you said. I'm adding a fiction minor here too sometime soon. I'm a freshman, originally from Goshen, Indiana, so take the South Shore all the way down and then go a little bit farther down, and that's where I am.
Goshen, Indiana?
Yeah.
Really? What made you inspire you to come to Chicago?
Well, my mom found an article about the comedy writing and performance program, and she was like, hey,
here at Columbia, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
okay.
This is something that looks interesting, and I went on a visit, and I loved every minute of it. So that's basically what inspired me to come to Columbia.
Explain the story you just shared with us. It's entitled Bush, and it's from a series, correct?
Yeah, well, I had this project that I had to do for my first year seminar class, and I wanted to explore themes of identity by using word association and writing short stories. So I thought the relationship between the short stories, what I decided to tell, what stories about myself and about people I know, and how those related back to the words. I thought they might reveal something about me and about my identity as a person and as an author.
Let's talk about your passion for authors and being a writer. You actually wrote for a publication in your high school, correct?
Yeah, it was called Sightline. bc-sightline.net if anyone is interested in a tiny little Christian schools newspaper. I wrote a lot of things. I got to write some more creative short stories. I got to do some interviews and some stories about the school. It was a really good way to get some experience.
And great inspiration, speaking of which, you have a lot of family members, including your grandmother, who inspired you, correct?
Yeah, my step-grandma, she's a writer. She was a writer. She passed away a few years ago from ALS.
I'm
but
sorry to hear that.
She was a writer, and she just loved that I also had a passion for writing, and she wanted to support me in any way that she could. So when I write now, it's like I'm trying to, make her proud, and, it's like she's here with me sometimes.
And I'm sure she is proud.
Yeah.
Talk about all of these stories that you come up with. Are they all inspired by true events, or are these all fictionalized? Explain that a little bit.
Well, I like telling stories about myself because they're a little easier to build the world around them. That's one thing that is usually kind of hard for me, is that I have some trouble fleshing things out and making sure that all the details are there. I want to be very detail oriented, and I try to do that, and I end up getting really wrapped up in it, and it can be pretty difficult. So when I have a world and a plot that's kind of laid out for me already, it's a lot easier. But I draw inspiration from my life and from things that happen to me and from conversations I have. And sometimes they can inspire a fictional story, and sometimes they can inspire a story that's mostly true.
You mentioned you're a freshman,
Yes.
right? Let's talk about, since being here, about how many stories have you written? I know you have a plethora of them on your Tumblr page, your website. Explain that to me.
Well, I wrote these obviously for class. I haven't had a whole lot of time to write necessarily, but I have a lot of ideas. I've felt a lot more creative since I've come here, I think. So there are ideas that I have for short stories and for sketches and for, I don't know, TV shows. I have a whole bunch of stuff up there.
Let's talk about the performance aspect. You play the ukulele?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How did this come about?
Well, I wanted to be able to play an instrument because I sing too. And I wanted to be able to accompany myself and have an instrument that I can play. And I thought the ukulele would be easier than the guitar and the piano, which I'd taken lessons on the piano when I was in elementary school, and I didn't want to go through with it. But the ukulele seemed a lot easier, and so I taught myself how to play.
Thank you for that insight. That's great stuff, Rachel. Now our audience at home has been tweeting throughout the program, and our social media producer, Erica, has been monitoring your questions and comments for Rachel. What's our first tweet, Erica?
Our first tweet is from Kim, and she asks, where can we read more of your work?
Well, you can check out my Tumblr, like you've mentioned. It's Rachel Ann Writes, all one word, rachelanwrites.tumblr.com.
And you have your stories updated frequently on there?
Well, whenever I have something that I want to share, like a story, or there are some poems on there too, I'll upload them and you can read them up there.
Definitely, and it's different genres on there, not just one genre. You have a
Okay. Yeah, there's some funny things. There's some ridiculous things, or some more serious things.
Good stuff. Erica, what do we have?
Our next one is from Laura Rich, and her question is, what is the hardest part about writing a story?
Well, like I mentioned before, I'm really detail oriented, and that would be my the hardest thing is, like, especially when you're writing something that's completely fictional, you have to build an entire world around your characters, and even if it's a lot like this world, it's really difficult to make sure that everything is, like, there's continuity and that the details are all there, that they're not just, in a blank space. So that can be kind of difficult, is making sure that everything's accounted for.
That is awesome. Miss Erica, do we have one more?
Yes, we do. Unorthodox Bridge says, I really like how your hat and leggings match the sofa. What's your style of fashion?
I'm sorry, what's the name again?
Unorthodox Bridge?
Unorthodox, that name is taken, just in case you were thinking about it.
Okay. Well, my style varies quite a bit. I would say, like, depending on how I feel and depending on the day and the time.
Like you have the Halloween earrings, I see.
Yeah.
That's so smooth.
I like hats a lot because then I don't have to put any effort into my hair. That's a nice thing. And I like leggings because they're super comfortable. Yeah.
You just have a nice style, I see.
Thank you.
You don't even really, you have a great style. It's perfect. We have a lot of people on here who have their own style, so that makes you unique. Don't even worry about it. Cool. Also, you know Spanish. I know they are curious about that. How did that come about?
Well, I took Spanish in high school, and my sophomore year, first semester, there was an exchange opportunity to go to Paraguay and learn in a school in Asunción. So I went down there, and I was there for a semester and got to, soak it all in. And I continued classes throughout my high school career just to keep it up.
So would you say you're proficient, or would you say,
I have a pretty good conversational vocabulary, I would say, probably.
That's great stuff. Rachel, thank you so much. Unfortunately, that's about all the time we have for today. Thank you to all you viewers who are watching at home. If you love Rachel and her short stories, vote for her at tinyurl.com/vote Creative Clash. Remember, she cannot win without your vote. If you want to see more talent, tune in to the next show today at 4 p.m. Until then, I'm your host, Joshua Short. Thank you for watching Creative Clash, and I will see you next week.